The original thesis was that what creators really needed is WordPress for NFTs. That thesis was totally wrong. Users really want access to smart contracts. It should just be automatic. Treat it with the same diligence of customer discovery you would a Web 2 product that you're building. The idea of if you build it, they will come is wrong. It's if you scare them, they will come. People who have gotten jobs at Web 2 can program on Solana. 70 of the world's largest financial institutions submit transactions to Solana every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Next Billion podcast. I'm here with a very special guest today. I'm here with Austin Federa. Austin, great to see you here in Turkey.
Yeah.
And welcome to Solana Crossroads.
Thanks. It's really good to be here. I'm very impressed with what you guys have pulled off.
Thank you. Look, it's hard work, and the guy behind the camera, you should be thanking him, really.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, mysterious guy behind the camera, who's you can't see, but no, look, it's been a lot of hard work. And now we understand and appreciate what you guys go through to put on hacker houses and Breakpoint.
It's one of my favorite things are when like other chains will come to us and they'll say like, oh, how do you put on hacker houses? And we'll say like, oh yeah, we actually have a 3-person full-time events team. They're like, what? We thought we could just have the intern do it. It's like, no, these things are hard.
Yeah. And it's everything from like how many bollards are there for the registration desk? Or what's the cable routing for the lounge area, or things like this that you don't really think about when you're putting on an event. You're like, yeah, there'll be an event. I'm sure I'll find a guy that'll do it.
Yeah, where do you get this made?
Yeah, where do you get this made? Is it made in time?
Yeah.
Is the graphic design done for it? You know, all of these sorts of things. So yeah, I totally appreciate that.
How do you get the columns wrapped? Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so look, it's a pleasure having you here. And I heard some of your talks this morning as well, and you were talking, maybe putting in context about Solana versus some of the other chains and what you're focusing on, and speed is very important. We've got Fire Dancer as well coming soon. Maybe we can talk about, what are some of the priorities for you for 2023 in the Solana world? And I guess your role at Solana's strategy, right? So maybe you can talk about...
Changed a little bit recently.
Okay, tell us, like, what's the reasoning behind some of the decisions that you guys are taking right now?
So the core of what made Solana what it is today is obviously the community of developers and builders on the network. And I think over the course of 2021, especially around the end of it, you saw a huge influx of people to the network who were just excited to be here. And that's great, right? And we saw a lot of NFT projects launch that maybe didn't have a ton of substance to them. And a lot of these kinds of, every time you have a giant economic upswing in the market in general, you see a lot of people rush in. And then inevitably, you see a downdraw, right? And the people who are left and are still building, like that's the real community. Those are the real builders and developers. And so the work of the foundation is very much twofold. On one hand, it's very much about building the types of infrastructure and tooling that people need to be able to build whatever they want to on Solana. And kind of that sounds like generic and whatever.
Yeah.
But like,
what does that mean practically?
So a great example of this is Metaplex.
Right.
So Metaplex started as an internal project that like 6 of us were working on that was sort of like, could we figure out a way to do NFTs different or better than other chains do them? And the way that was built was modular to begin with. The original thesis was that what creators really needed is they needed WordPress for NFTs. They needed a front end you could create easily. They needed a contract you could interact with. Turns out that thesis was totally wrong. We thought no one would want to do fixed price. We thought everyone would want to do auctions. But the one piece of that really survived, and this is kind of the only piece that survived, was that core minting contract. It's not even the auction contract, but like the minting contract. And that is like a great example of where all the work that we build through Labs and Foundation needs to be built in ways that people can just take the parts they want and leave the rest of it. And so when we try and design stuff that is opinionated, but it has to be, you have to be able to undo our opinions pretty easily from it. As kind of an example, state compression is another one of those pieces of technology where we don't know what people are going to build with it. Like, you can mint 100 million NFTs for $1,500 now. Yeah,
really cool stat from today.
Which is really cool.
The example of trying to compare that elsewhere to other chains, it was going to be like millions of dollars.
We ran out of zeros.
Yeah, there's a lot of zeros on it. So does this enable new business models, or why do that? Like, were people asking for it, and what's the process? Because is it just a bunch of people on Twitter like, hey man, this is a cool idea. And then you guys are like, yeah, let's do that as a thing. Or like, how did that come about?
So it used to cost about 12 cents to mint an NFT on Solana, which is incredibly cheap and also still pretty expensive. It depends what your use case is.
Compared with a transaction, just sending money, like...
Totally. If you're doing a 10,000 PFP collection, it's not that much money. If you're trying to build a game on Solana, that actually could be prohibitively expensive. So I'll answer that part first, which is like, the goal of this is to let people build things at disruptively cheap price points. Again, like Solana had to be 10,000 times faster than Ethereum for it to get any attention.
Yep.
So if we can make our NFTs 100,000 times cheaper than the closest competitor, someone's going to do something interesting with that.
Yep.
The core thesis I have about all technology is that you need step changes, for lack of a better term, in capacity or cost in order to make change happen. So you would not have the app explosion we saw on the iPhone if we still had 2G internet.
Yeah.
Just wouldn't have happened. And so these sort of capacity building areas where you're able to take the available bandwidth and 10x it, or you're able to take the available block space or transactions per second, in our case, and 10x or 100x or 1000x that, you'll see change where people will build new things. It's kind of like, I don't think anyone looked at the iPhone and thought dating will never be the same.
Yep.
But like,
It's happened. It's a thing.
completely,
Yeah.
right? And that sort of thing, I'm sure no one at Apple even remotely predicted could possibly have happened.
Yeah.
And so when I say we don't know what's going to happen with state compression, all we know is it's going to make the ability to mint NFTs and also create accounts. State compression also supports account space. So if you need to import 100 million accounts that you have from, a big Web 2 program, today that's like, 0.0023 SOL for the account rent space that you need. If you can do that with state compression, suddenly that cost drops by 10,000x.
Yep.
And so all sorts of new models there. A great example of this is Helium. So Helium, the decentralized wireless protocol, they have about 800,000, 900,000 hotspots all around the world run by people. They're on this weird custom Erlang blockchain now.
Right.
With no smart contracts, because the things that they can do on that chain, it's like a piece of very specifically designed circuitry, except in software.
Which is kind of amazing that they're willing to switch to a public sort of generic open blockchain like Solana over a custom-made thing. Usually it's the reverse.
Yeah.
People, like some big company comes in and they're like, this sort of custom thing that's open to the world, I kind of need my own like closed thing that's tailored directly for me. But they're going the opposite. Yeah.
They're doing the opposite, and they're doing it because their users really want access to smart contracts.
Right.
And they really want to be able to create a system where if I have a hotspot and I put it in your house, you should get a cut of that revenue, and we should have it on a smart contract. That shouldn't be you pinging me every month and saying how much money did I earn and me sending you some tokens. It should just be automatic.
Yep.
And so they're using state compression to do all the payouts, and they're going to be doing, I think, the largest mint of NFTs anyone has ever done.
Yeah, right. Amazing.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. I love to see it. And I think as well, the Web 2 companies coming to the Web 3, it's kind of been memed on a little bit with the examples of like, I remember McDonald's did NFTs, and it's like, cool,
the
man.
Taco Bell NFTs.
But is anyone in the McDonald's Discord / does that even exist? Probably not. And is everyone thinking that that's the next best thing? So I think a lot of these solutions, like, aren't they going to come from the Web 3 world really, and maybe not from the Web 2 world? I don't know. What's your thoughts? Like, do we have to build stuff for Web 2 companies versus let's just build stuff that's Web 3 native to begin with and people will emerge? Like, I don't know, is there some thought there?
There is thought there. There's also a pet theory. And my pet theory is that in 2018, a huge amount of people got washed out.
Yep.
They used to be developers building something on Ethereum. They all got fired because ETH went to $80 and everyone, there was zero activity left basically in Ethereum at that time. And of course it came back wonderfully.
Yep.
But all those people went and got jobs at Visa and Facebook and MasterCard.
It's kind of sad.
And well, it's kind of sad, but at the same time, all those companies, when they spun up a blockchain innovation arm, they picked EVM.
There you go.
Why? Because the people who were there knew EVM.
Yeah.
And so in some ways, like, this downturn is not good, but there's people who have gotten jobs at Web 2 who know how to program on Solana now.
Yeah.
And 70 of the world's largest financial institutions already submit transactions to Solana every day as part of the PIF network.
Amazing. Let's go.
So like, the building blocks are getting there. I don't think that it's good for blockchain foundations to be aggressively pitching Web 2 companies.
Yep.
But we do need some level of relationship maintenance. So when they're sort of like, okay, we're ready to disrupt ourselves, they're looking at Solana as the blockchain that they pick. And so that's kind of where, do we need to build tooling specifically for Web 2 companies? I don't think so.
Right.
I think it's sort of the idea of, if you build it, they will come is wrong with Web 2 companies. I think it's if you scare them, they will come.
Okay. Interesting. And we use the word building a lot, right? And we focus on builders and developers and that sort of thing. We recently had the Grizzlython as well, which,
Yeah.
I mean, how many entrants to that? There was like close to 10,000 or something?
Yeah,
Or?
there were over 800 projects actually submitted.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Huge numbers
Yeah.
as well. Like, generally, when you compare that to a Google or Amazon hackathon, like, it's pretty comparable, right? Like, so when we're talking about builders, great, we get a lot of people at these hackathons, but what happens next? And is that a metric that Solana is looking at? And how do you think that we activate these people? Like, these 800 projects, I want them to grow and build teams and hire 10 people and all this kind of stuff. But to do that, they need a lot of other things. So how are you guys thinking about maybe activating, or are you? What comes next?
No,
the next step?
It's a really good question. And it's something we've spent a lot of time thinking about. So there are, in the bull market, the answer was they were a halfway decent team, some VC would fund them.
Yep.
And there's good parts of that and bad parts of that.
Yep.
Nowadays, in this economic climate, I mean, even traditional equity companies, if you're not building something in AI, it's hard to get funding.
Yep.
So there's a few different ways we're thinking about it. The first is the grants program has been sort of retooled a bit to be focusing on exclusively on open source public good software. And so like a great example of this is like the Tiny Dancer team, which is a light client on Solana, joke on Fire Dancer, right?
Right.
They have no path to monetization. No one's ever going to pay them to build that software except the Solana Foundation.
Yeah.
And eventually, maybe other people who use the client and find it useful will start donating to them. But that's a great example of something where the foundation is basically the only organization that has a treasury that it didn't earn.
Yeah.
The foundation treasury wasn't earned, it was just granted to us in the Genesis block. Like, we have to put it to work and do good things on behalf of the ecosystem.
Yep.
And the thinking at the foundation, and my thinking, is that the best way to do that is support open source development of public goods infrastructure. The other piece that's getting worked on are things like accelerator and mentorship programs for some of the folks coming out of the hacker houses and coming out of the hackathons.
Right.
And then the last one is there's folks that are building better and stronger relationships with VCs, which is specifically not to help us, but it's to help teams in the ecosystem. And a lot of VCs are not particularly technical, and so if they hear
AI buzzword,
or even if they hear like SVM, I don't know what SVM is. Not interested, right?
Yeah.
If they're like, knowing something about Solana is kind of a tricky thing for them. So we're doing a lot more just like, hi, would you like to learn about Solana? Let's have a call, let's like talk about that sort of thing. The work that like groups like The Block and Masari put out in their research products are really helpful for that.
Yep.
Sort of help people understand the dynamics of the network better.
Awesome.
But a lot of that's education problems, honestly.
Absolutely, and this is something that I think we think about at Step as well, is education and onboarding. And you spend a lot of your time, I think you've been traveling around the world for the last few months, and also, are you tired yet, man? Like, come on.
I describe myself as post-jet lag.
Okay.
Like, I'm never...
Just a robot, like,
I'm never...
going through the motions?
Particularly awake or asleep.
Okay.
It's like, at any moment, like, I could go on stage and have a big rousing activity and like, go to a party, or I could go to sleep.
Yep.
Just post-jet lag.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if it's the healthiest state, but...
That's pretty useful, right?
Yeah.
I like it. So you're here at Solana Crossroads.
Yes.
You've been traveling around the world at different hacker houses and other interesting spots. What's sort of your plan for the rest of this year? Maybe like, is it to go and sort of grow more of these community meetups, or is it to visit? I know the Hacker House X's is another thing, which is sort of getting a lot of traction now as well. What's your take on just sort of what your plans are for the rest of the year, or what you want to see, or what you would like the Solana community to do as well?
So you might not believe me, but I do travel as little as possible.
Okay. I don't believe you.
I know, right? But the thing that goes on with a lot of this work is, a bunch of the hacker houses this year are in new markets, for lack of a better term, areas that we haven't been to before. And when we came to Istanbul in like January, February for the hacker house we threw on, the number of people who were like, wow, you guys brought senior leadership here was just huge.
Yeah.
And so
I heard that as well.
I think it's really important to show up.
Yep.
Like, being committed to a region and actually being committed to development in somewhere, it's fine to just say it, but like, if the Turkish version of Solana shows up, everyone kind of knows, right? They're like, oh, this isn't the person I know on Twitter. This isn't the person I see on stage at Breakpoint, right? And that's not like, and so, just the place that like Raj and Toli are in right now in their lives, like, they're not traveling much, and that's great for them, right? And I still have the ability to do that. I don't have kids in a family and all that stuff, so I'm able to do that. And so myself and Lily, who's the president of the foundation, have been doing much more of that work nowadays, and it really helps and matters. And so that was why I was in Vietnam as well, another new market for us that has a super team working there too. another big contributor to the hackathon, which was great.
Yep, they've been great. I mean, Super
Yeah.
Team's over there. We've got Super Team Turkey.
Yeah.
They've been a great help for us as well, doing incredible stuff, onboarding new people in new markets. So it's really cool to see, like, DAOs weren't really there yet, I don't think, for the last 12 months until maybe recently. So DAOs initially started as, hey, we've got like this DeFi thing and we're all going to vote on stuff. And then it just became a lot of people voting on a lot of things that probably didn't matter, but also voter apathy was a big problem as well.
Yeah.
And it turned out that at the end of the day, after a big bear market, like no one wants to vote on anything anymore. But I think DAOs which are doing productive things that are open to everyone that's not just, you know, an engineer or something like that, like what Super Team's doing,
Totally.
seems to be a model that's working. Like you go in their Discord and there's tons of people talking about all sorts of different stuff.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see. And I'm like, wow, they've grown that in a period of a few months. That's awesome.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. And that's really a testament to Turkey, right?
Yeah.
That's like, that. I mean, yes, congrats to Super Team, but like the demand and excitement in the community is here and ready and really ready to start building stuff on blockchain.
Yeah.
You know, you were mentioning sort of the community conferences. This is the first one of 2023. This is like, truly, we at the Solana Foundation did nothing to make this happen. This is all on you guys. It's an incredible success. I would love to see more of this by more teams elsewhere in the world. The Hacker House X program is sort of our attempt to kickstart that, where we provide some amount of funding and some amount of consulting if teams want it to help them get a program like this off and running in their local market.
Yep.
Our long-term goal is to never run another Hacker House.
Solana's a blockchain, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like, I think the end goal should be Solana should be really good at that.
Yeah.
And then ideally, all these community things spring up. But also,
Exactly.
it's a chicken and the egg thing as well. Like Solana's had to kickstart these things. We're now on a roll, and now these community things are popping up, which is awesome to see. But like at the end of the day, I really like the concept of like Solana should be there in the background, just sort of doing its thing. And then the community's doing this in all these different places, right?
Well, you see, we're doing half a number of hacker houses in 22 we did in 21.
Yep.
We'll probably do half that number again, right? And eventually we'll get to a place where we'll probably run one thing in the spring and we run Breakpoint.
Yep.
And the rest of it is just grants given out to a super capable team to support what they're putting on elsewhere in the world.
Yeah. Awesome to see. Awesome to see. Well, look, thank you so much for coming today. Maybe if there's a message for some of the builders out there, we're very focused on like engineers, growing teams, next steps. We want Crossroads to be like an ongoing thing, that it's not like we just come to town once, we're like, cool man, do a great conference and then see you later next year. We want it to be an ongoing thing. So what should people be looking at if they want to build on Solana? Where should they be going? I think the cookbooks was one thing, and Solana University's over there. We've got Saga going on. Like, where should people go? What should they do?
So the Solana.com/developers has tons of links and resources. SolDev, Cookbook. If you're in a region that has a super team, definitely start connecting with them. You certainly don't have to connect with a super team. Like, it's not like a requirement to be successful or anything, but they're usually very helpful in that process.
Yep.
You know, the biggest thing I would say to developers is figure out why you're building something. And the reason I say that is, in this economic climate, getting funding is harder.
Yep.
And if you're building core research engineering, build core research engineering. If you're trying to build a product and treat it with the same diligence of customer discovery you would a Web 2 product that you're building.
Yeah.
Because funding is hard to come by right now. And, you know, building something as an impressive engineering project is great, but, you know, the thing you really want is something that users love. And that's kind of the biggest thing I keep thinking about is how AI was nowhere 6 months ago, 9 months ago, in terms of like the public perception. And it scared every Web 2 company so heavily. Google literally threw out its roadmap and launched a new AI system, and Notion's got AI in it, and all these, they're all playing catch up. And that's what I was saying before about like, you gotta scare the Web 2 companies, right?
Yeah.
And if we can build stuff, this is Saga, this is on a mobile stack. It's meant to scare the phone companies a little bit. If we can get them just a little bit scared and be like, you don't have to be that worried, here's a path, like this is actually open and permissionless, we're not gonna compete with you, someone else is gonna compete with you building on Solana. I think that's one of the strongest things to just keep in mind for folks as they start the process of building a product.
Yeah, I love that perspective. I think it's super important. Also, connecting non-technical people with a lot of these technical teams. Like you mentioned there, you know, engineers, you need to be thinking about why you're building what you're building, but also you need the right people to help you build. And what I see a lot is engineers talking to engineers who then talk to engineers, and then you build a product for engineers and your market size is very small compared with product built for people.
Completely.
So it's like, how do we get more of those people into the ecosystem and involved? And maybe I think it's through things like Super Team and these events and this kind of stuff, building the community. Like, we just need more touch points for people to connect and try and find each other.
I mean, I would say I'm a strong believer that you ship your org chart.
Yep.
And so if you don't have designers in your org chart and you don't have them fairly senior in your org, your product's not going to be that well designed.
Yep.
And that is intentional,
Yep.
right? Every hire a startup makes is not accidental. It's intentional. Yep. And if you don't set aside the resourcing for marketing or comms or products or design, you're saying that's not important to us. And that's okay. Yep. There's many products like FireDancer.
Yeah.
FireDancer does not need much comms or marketing, right? Or design work.
Yeah. It's about knowing who you are.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And being honest with that. If you want to build a game, you can't not have someone on marketing.
Yeah.
Right? These sort of things are just like, think about the end state of success and what you need to get there, and think less about the process by which you build the engineering.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, look, Austin, it's been a pleasure having you here today.
Yeah.
It's awesome to see you here in Turkey. And if you want to find out more, definitely go and check out some of the links Austin was talking about. Solana.com/developers, right?
Yes.
All of the links are there. Go and check it out. Join Super Team. Check out Step. But look, pleasure being here. We'll talk soon. We're going to go and see some more presentations. In fact, I think there's a pitch session next. So thank you very much. And we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.